When we talk about dominance, who's the first player that comes to mind? I'm sure it's Shaquille O'Neal, a player who, at his peak, was breaking backboards and was practically unguardable for any NBA defender. Could it be that, in his prime, Shaquille O'Neal was the most dominant player in all of history? That's what we're going to explore in this video. And if you want to be dominant as well, make sure to like the video and comment down below which player you want me to cover next. When Shaquille O'Neal entered the NBA in 1992, he wasn't just another rookie. He was a force of nature. From his first game with the Orlando Magic, Shaq showed the world that he was something completely different. Standing an impressive 7 feet 1 inch tall and weighing over 290 pounds, he was practically unstoppable. In his debut game, he was already dominating, grabbing 18 rebounds and blocking 3 shots, as if it were just another day at the office. And that was only the beginning. Shaq was a rare combination of size, strength, and agility. Watching that massive guy run the entire court, grabbing rebounds, blocking shots, and dunking the ball with a force that made the backboard shake was something no one was prepared for. He quickly became a sensation. Every Orlando Magic game was a Shaq show. Arenas would sell out just to see him play, and he never disappointed. From the start, he was there to destroy his opponents in the paint, playing with an intensity that made his defenders look like amateurs. In his rookie season, he was named Rookie of the Year, and that was just the beginning. He made dominating professional basketball look easy, as if he was born for it. His numbers were incredible for a rookie. He averaged 23.4 points, 13.9 rebounds, and 3.5 blocks per game. He wasn't just playing. He was setting a new standard for what an NBA center could be. Shaq's impact was so huge that in no time, he put the Orlando Magic on the NBA map, turning a once irrelevant team into a legitimate playoff threat. And the most amazing thing was that he did all of this with a smile on his face. Shaq was a playful giant, full of charisma. He had a presence that went beyond the court. It was almost as if he was born to be a star. He brought a new energy to the league, a mix of raw talent and a personality that captivated everyone around him. In the beginning, it was clear that he wasn't just a basketball player, he was a phenomenon. When we talk about Shaquille O'Neal's dominance with the Orlando Magic, we're talking about a guy who changed the game in a way that few have managed to do. After his immediate impact as a rookie, Shaq only continued to evolve, becoming even more terrifying for his opponents. He wasn't just big and strong, he was a smart player who knew how to use his body and skills to control the game. At the Magic, he quickly became the heart and soul of the team, carrying them on his back and taking them to new heights. With Shaq leading the charge, the Orlando Magic went from being a mediocre team to one of the powerhouses in the East. He became a nightmare in the paint. Shaq would get the ball in the low post and simply dominate anyone standing in his way. Opponents knew what was coming, but it was like they were powerless to stop him. He would spin toward the basket with a speed unusual for someone his size, and when he dunked, he did it with such force that it seemed like the rim might break. In one game, he even shattered a backboard with a dunk, a reminder that he played with a level of brute strength no one could match. But Shaq's dominance wasn't just physical. He began to better understand the game, to read defenses, and to pass the ball when necessary. He wasn't satisfied with just being the most physical player in the league. He wanted to be the most complete as well. He developed his post-game, his passing ability, and even his defense, becoming an even more formidable presence. And all that hard work started to pay off. In 1995, Shaq led the Magic to the NBA Finals, an achievement that had seemed impossible just a few years earlier. Although they didn't win the championship that year, Shaq had proven that he was capable of taking an entire team to the highest levels. He was already a star, but now he was becoming a legend. Every game showcased his evolution, his growth as a player, and his determination to be the best. During his time with the Magic, he not only demonstrated how dominant he could be, but also how quickly he could evolve, adjusting his game to become nearly unstoppable. Shaquille O'Neal's transition to the Los Angeles Lakers was a pivotal moment in both NBA history and Shaq's career. After a few incredible years with the Orlando Magic, where he showed the world what he was capable of, Shaq decided it was time for a change. When you think of a move that could shake up the league, going to the Lakers was exactly that. We're talking about the Lakers, a team with a rich history, filled with stars and championships. It was the perfect place for someone like Shaq, who had enormous ambitions. When Shaq arrived in Los Angeles in 1996, it wasn't just a change of city or team, it was a move that completely altered the course of his career. He was already an established name in the league, but he knew that to truly become a legend, he needed more. He needed championships, and the Lakers were the perfect stage for that. There, he found new motivation and energy. Los Angeles, with all its glory and expectations, embraced Shaq in a way that few cities could. He wasn't just a basketball player. He became a celebrity, a public figure, an icon. At the Lakers, Shaq also encountered a young talent named Kobe Bryant. At first, no one knew exactly what to expect from this duo, But one thing was clear, both had an insatiable desire to win. The move to the Lakers wasn't just about changing teams, but also about adjusting his game to become even more dominant. Shaq was determined to lead the Lakers back to the top, and his arrival marked the beginning of a new era for the franchise. He was more focused, more determined, and more ruthless than ever. With the Lakers, Shaq began to realize that he wasn't just playing to be the best player of his generation, but to be one of the greatest of all time. He knew that in Los Angeles, he would have the platform, the resources, and the support to make that happen. And that's exactly what he did. His transition to the Lakers wasn't just a change of team, but the beginning of a journey that would see him recognized as one of the most dominant players in NBA history. The pinnacle of Shaquille O'Neal's career with the Lakers, between 1999 and 2002, was simply legendary. Those years marked the period when Shaq became a true force of nature in the NBA, and nobody could stop him. He was at the height of his physical and technical powers, combining brute strength with an incredible level of skill for someone his size. It was during this time that he solidified himself as the most dominant player in the league, and perhaps in the history of basketball. During this period, Shaq and the Lakers formed one of the most powerful dynasties the NBA had ever seen. With Phil Jackson as head coach, bringing in the famous triangle offense, Shaq found the perfect system to thrive in. And he didn't shine alone. Alongside Kobe Bryant, they formed one of the most iconic duos in sports. Even with Kobe emerging as a superstar, it was clear that Shaq was the cornerstone of this team. He commanded the paint with an absurd level of authority, and no one in the league had an answer for him. Shaq dominated games in a way that was almost hard to believe. He didn't just overpower his opponents. He often made them look like kids playing against an adult. During the 2000 finals against the Indiana Pacers, for example, he was simply unstoppable, averaging an absurd 38 points and 16.7 rebounds per game, securing the Lakers' first title in over a decade.
Out on him on a switch. Here's Shaq for the jumper from the big line. Harper in deep to O'Neal.
Basket.
Bryant with the miss. O'Neal with the recovery. O'Neal against the smaller Perkins. Now they surround him. He gets the ball. Is no good, but there's Rice with the funnel, and now it's all over.
Want to use clock and stay organized and look at it.
And he didn't stop there. Over the next 2 seasons, he continued his dominance, leading the Lakers to 2 more consecutive championships, sweeping the New Jersey Nets in the 2002 finals and winning his 3rd straight finals MVP award. Those years were the absolute peak of Shaq. He was the most dominant player in an era filled with talent. There was nothing anyone could do to stop him. He had a combination of size, strength, and skill that the NBA had never seen before, and maybe never will again. With the Lakers, he achieved what every great player dreams of. He became immortal, a living legend, a name that will be remembered forever. Shaquille O'Neal's physical and technical dominance was something extraordinary, a true phenomenon that few in NBA history have ever matched. Shaq wasn't just a giant. He was a 7 feet 1 inch, 325-pound colossus. But what was most impressive was how he used every ounce of that weight in a devastating way. It was the perfect combination of brute strength and refined skill. When he was at his peak, no one could stop him. It was like trying to stop a freight train with your bare hands. In the paint, Shaq did whatever he wanted. If he decided to dunk, no defender, no matter how strong or skilled, could stop him. He used his body intelligently, always positioning himself in the best spot to receive the ball and finish the play. And when he jumped, it felt like the ground shook. His dunks weren't just a play, they were a spectacle, a statement of absolute power. He literally shattered backboards multiple times. But what many people forget is that Shaq wasn't just about power. He had a soft touch around the rim, could pass the ball, and had surprisingly agile footwork for a guy his size. He was quick in his movements, spinning around defenders and making post moves like a perimeter player. He also had a lethal hook shot, which he used to finish over smaller opponents and even taller centers. Additionally, Shaq had a rare ability to read the game. He knew when to dish the ball to his teammates, when to force the play, and he had impeccable timing on rebounds. Most incredible thing was that Shaq maintained this level of dominance for so long. Elite defenders, entire defensive schemes, foul tactics like hack-a-Shaq, nothing worked to stop him. He simply controlled the game in his own way, redefining what it meant to be a center in the NBA. Shaq was a nightmare for anyone unfortunate enough to face him because he was simply unstoppable. The internal conflicts and Shaquille O'Neal's departure from the Lakers were like an earthquake in the NBA. At the peak of his career, Shaq was the beating heart of the Lakers. Not everything was perfect in the locker room. His relationship with Kobe Bryant, though explosive on the court, was marked by tension off it. The two had very strong personalities, and this often turned into internal rivalry. Kobe was young, ambitious, and wanted to show that he could be the main guy on the team, while Shaq was already an established superstar. with his own way of leading the team. These clashes kept building up over the years. Coaches, executives, and even the players themselves had to deal with the constant clash of egos. Shaq didn't hide his discontent with some of Kobe's attitudes, and on the other hand, Kobe didn't like how Shaq sometimes behaved in practices or his apparent lack of commitment to staying in shape. These differences eventually created a cloud of tension hanging over the team, especially after their loss in the 2004 finals to the Detroit Pistons. The situation reached a breaking point when the Lakers management had to pick a side. They chose to bet on the future and the youth of Kobe, which meant Shaq had to go. It was a shocking moment for the fans, for the league, and even for Shaq himself. He had been the face of the franchise for so long, and suddenly, he was being let go. His move to the Miami Heat marked the end of a golden era for the Lakers and the beginning of a new chapter, both for Shaq and for Kobe. But the impact of their breakup was felt by everyone. It was the end of one of the most dominant yet tumultuous partnerships in NBA history. After leaving the Lakers, Shaq arrived at the Miami Heat with something to prove. Many people thought he was in decline, that his time as the most dominant player in the NBA was over. But Shaq, being Shaq, was ready to show the world that he still had a lot to give. He arrived in Miami with a mission: to win another title and silence all the critics. And that's exactly what he did. At the Heat, Shaq formed an impressive duo with Dwayne Wade, a young star who was just beginning to shine. Shaq brought experience and physical presence, while Wade brought youth and energy. Together, they transformed the Heat into an NBA powerhouse. The 2005 to 2006 season was the big turning point. Shaq was playing with renewed focus, and the entire team seemed energized by his presence. In the playoffs, the Heat was unstoppable. Shaq dominated the paint like in his prime, and Wade elevated his game to an MVP level. In the finals against the Dallas Mavericks, Shaq showed that he was still an impactful player. It was the support and the space he created for Wade that really made the difference. The combination of Shaq's brute strength and Wade's skill was too much for the Mavericks. The Heat won the finals 4-2, and Shaq secured his fourth NBA championship ring. It was a confirmation that he was still one of the best in the league, a resurgence that showcased his greatness and resilience. And, of course, it added another incredible chapter to the legend of Shaquille O'Neal. After the title with the Miami Heat, Shaq's career began to slow down. He played for the Phoenix Suns, Cleveland Cavaliers, and Boston Celtics. He was no longer the dominant force he once was. At the Suns, he still had some brilliant moments, but age and injuries started to take their toll. High expectations came when Shaq joined LeBron James at the Cleveland Cavaliers. Many thought the combination of a prime LeBron with Shaq's experience could bring a title to Cleveland. However, that partnership didn't work out as hoped. Shaq could no longer impose the same presence in the paint, and the team didn't go far in the playoffs. Even so, it was interesting to see these two great personalities together, but didn't achieve the success expected. Shaquille O'Neal's legacy in the NBA is undoubtedly that of being the most dominant player to ever step on a basketball court. The word dominant almost feels like an understatement when describing Shaq. He wasn't just a 7 feet 1 inch, 325-pound giant. He was agile, explosive, and incredibly skilled for someone his size. Shaq changed the game simply by being on the floor. Defenders were terrified at the thought of facing him in the paint. He had that unique ability to combine brute strength with a soft touch around the rim, making him a constant threat both physically and technically. His impact went beyond the stats, the points, and the rebounds. He inspired an entire generation of big men to dream big, want to dominate the game the way he did. More than that, Shaq brought a unique charisma to the league. He was immense, but he had a captivating smile, sharp sense of humor, and a personality that won over both fans and critics alike. He knew how to be brutal on the court, but also how to connect with people off of it. This balance between being a colossus in basketball and a charismatic, approachable figure is part of what cements his legacy. Shaq changed the way basketball was played and how centers were viewed. He redefined what it meant to be dominant in the sport, and that impact is still felt today, decades after his prime. He is, without a doubt, a living legend who will never be forgotten.